session on the rights of children with disabilities, where we have the pleasure of welcoming Judith, Heumann, and Beyza Ünal. But before I actually introduce them, what I would like to do, since this is actually a named session, it's the Elsass Award session. We're going to show a short video about the Elsass Foundation and the Elsass Foundation linked with the EACD, and then I'll be back and introducing Julie and Beyza, and we'll get into our conversation. So yeah, thanks.
Hello, my name is Jens Bo Nielsen. I'm responsible for research and development at the Elsass Foundation in Denmark. And I'm very happy to have been given this opportunity to say a few words about the Elsass Foundation and the background for the Elsass Lecture Prize. The Elsass Foundation is a private Danish foundation which aims to help people with cerebral palsy to achieve the best possible quality of life. The foundation is based on the inheritance from Helene Elsass, who suffered from cerebral palsy herself. Helene's parents were the owners of two large Danish companies, Sofus Berntsen and Rentokil, which were sold in the 1950s, and she therefore inherited quite a lot of money from her parents. When she died in 2003, she had a quite considerable fortune, which was then placed in the foundation. And the statutes of the foundation at that time had already been stipulated by Helene. In line with these statutes, the foundation has two main activities. One is that the foundation supports research projects and other projects related to people with CP in Denmark. The foundation supports around 10 to 15 research projects annually in Denmark with a total amount of around 3 million euro. In addition to this, the foundation supports projects in various institutions, such as making changes that facilitate wheelchair accessibility in museums, or to integrate and activate children with CP in kindergartens and schools. And the foundation also supports individuals with CP and their families through individual stipends of around 2,000 euro. The foundation gives away around 500 of those stipends every year. And another main activity is that the foundation has created its own center where it conducts research in relation to CP. That's what I'm responsible for, and also offers help and activities directly for persons with CP of all ages. This includes, for instance, psychological support for parents with newly diagnosed infants with CP, information and courses for therapists and doctors working with CP, help and support to young people with CP moving away from home, summer camp activities, and helping sports clubs integrating children with CP in various types of sports. All of these activities are directed to Danes with CP, which is very much in accordance with the will of Helene Elsass. However, this does not mean that the foundation focuses only on Denmark. We do wish to have an international outreach. The foundation therefore encourages research groups outside Denmark to collaborate with researchers in Denmark. And we certainly are willing to support and have already supported international collaborative projects. The only requirement is that there is a Danish collaboration and that the research, of course, will in some way benefit people with CP in Denmark. The foundation has also instigated an international research prize in order to recognize outstanding international researchers in the field of CP. The prize is awarded every 2 years, and the first winner of the prize was Bernard, who I believe should be known to most of you. This was in 2019. The next award will be given this year, on Monday actually, on the 14th of June. I already know who will receive it, but I'm not allowed to tell yet. But we already now encourage people to nominate candidates for the 2023 prize. This can be done on the homepage of the Elsass Foundation. Or you can also simply send me an email and I will do my best to facilitate the nomination. So this brings me to the Elsass Prize Lecture, which is the reason for me making this introduction. The background for this initiative is that the Elsass Foundation is eager to support the work that the EACD is doing to strengthen the field of childhood disabilities in Europe. The foundation has already supported the presence of distinguished speakers at the annual EACD meeting for the past about 4 or 5 years, and we are certainly eager to continue this commitment and to help facilitating communication of all the new knowledge of professionals to professionals as well as families with CP. The foundation has ongoing discussions with EACD of how the two organizations can develop collaboration also in the future. So we are certainly looking forward to this, and we are definitely honored to have this possibility to make a difference also outside Denmark. So with those words, I hope that you will enjoy the lecture.
So thanks a lot to Professor Bo Nielsen for introducing the Elsass Foundation and for the support for this keynote. Actually, it's not a keynote talk, it's a keynote conversation. And it's my pleasure to welcome Judith, Heumann and Beyza Ünal to this conversation and to, well, briefly introduce them. Judy Heumann, where I don't know where to start, honestly. She's a lifelong advocate for the rights of persons with disabilities. She's recognized both in the US but also internationally for her work as a leader in the disability community. She's worked with governments. She worked on at least 2 federal administrations, most recently for the Obama administration, I think as a special advisor on international on the rights of people with disabilities at an international level. She's also on the board of several non-governmental organizations. She's an author, she's a broadcaster, she's become, I'd say, a star recently with, you might have seen Judy as one of the persons who featured in Crit Camp, A Disability Revolution, which was recently Oscar nominated. And for those of you who haven't seen the movie, I really would strongly encourage you to see this documentary. It's really moving, and it gives you such a strong feeling of the lived experience. It's a must-see. So definitely, if you haven't seen it, do go ahead. And recently, I've seen that you've been nominated as the Rolling Warrior. You have, I think, there's a book coming out in the next couple of days, and I'm really looking forward to reading that. So. Thanks a lot, Judy, for being here. Beyza Ünal. Beyza Ünal is a disability rights activist from Turkey, based in Ankara. She's a clinical psychologist, currently working in a private practice, but who also has an academic function because she is teaching as a lecturer at the Department of Psychology at the TED University in Ankara. She's very active locally in Turkey, especially in the Association of Women with Disability, which has a rights-based perspective against multi-discrimination towards disabled women in Turkey. But she's also active at a European level, and she's an active member of the European Network on Independent Living. So yeah, thanks to both of you for being here. I very much look forward to this conversation, and maybe I'd like to kick it off with maybe a bit of a personal question into as well, what are the experience, because we're a childhood disability academy, what were your experiences as children and when you were growing up that supported you in developing your skills, your strong skills as disability activists later on in your life? I don't know who wants to start, Judy or Beyza?
Beyza, you go. Okay, I'm going to start. So hello everyone. First of all, I would like to say that I'm very happy to be here today. I'm sure you have enjoyed many sessions in this conference, and I'm very honored to be here for the closure actually. For my childhood experiences that led me here, I would like to say that there are so many. Actually, I cannot really talk about them one by one, but I would like to emphasize that um, there were several things that helped me to get here, actually, and that's one of them was my family, who were very supportive, and I was lucky that they were very educated and they had a good income, and this has given me lots of privileges as compared to other children with disabilities in Turkey at that time, because there weren't many opportunities for them, and with those privileges, I was able to have a good education, and I was able um, to see my disability and the conditions of disabled people probably earlier than many other disabled children, because I could at the beginning could start feeling like um, the problems I had experienced in my life were not because of my disability, but because of the lack of accessibility and lack of right-based understanding in the society, etc. And with the education I could really understand that, and I also believe that none of my teachers, not none of my, some of my teachers and some of the physiotherapists I had worked with when I was a child had very wide perspective to disability issues. They didn't see disability as something to be fixed, rather than they could really understand how the society doesn't meet my expectations and my needs, and they could emphasize this to me. And I really think that this really helped me to see myself from a positive perspective as well. And and I also think that this is really important. So we really shouldn't focus on these aspects. But I mean, when I could, I mean, when I started the university, and after the university, actually, I could really rely on these experiences and these messages that I got from my closest circle of my families and my therapists, etc. And because they were very important for me and my friends as well. And I could rely on that to become an activist and to fight for the rights, for inclusion and for equality, etc. And these really helped me to become who I am today, I can say. So
thank you, Beyza. That was a great answer. So Beyza's in her 30s and I'm 73. And in the United States, I was born in 1947. My parents are German Jewish refugees, lost family on both sides during the Holocaust. And I would say in many ways that directly and indirectly impacted them, because they were both survivors in the truest sense of the word. And they had a word which we use in the United States a lot now, called resilience. I don't know what the term was at that point, but I think when Beyza's talking about her family and others, one of the issues, as many of you realize, is that when one has a child with a disability, whether the child is born with their disability or, in my case, acquired it a number of years later when I had polio, the system itself, even today, is still not really set up in such a way that people see on a regular basis positive role models of disabled children or adults. And so frequently there is anything from a complete absence of disabled children or adults, or the representation of disabled people is very negative, or the representation is based on giving charity and very much on the issue of cure. And so if one of your primary focuses is cure, but you have people who currently have those disabilities, then there's a real barrier in one's thinking. And I think still today, for families who have disabled children, they are not necessarily automatically linked into systems of services. And too frequently, I think the professions themselves are not really looking at the reason for quality health and OT and PT and speech therapy and whatever as a means to the end. And the end really is community inclusion, including education and employment. So my experiences were today atypical because of laws that we have in the US and in Turkey and many other countries. But we still know that there are many disabled children who are denied the right to go to school in certain countries based on their disability. So my mother took me to school, wasn't expecting anything from the system other than educating me. And the principal denied me admission because I used a wheelchair and couldn't walk, and called me a fire hazard. So that's when I really, I mean, I was 5. So at 5, how much do you really understand? But I did understand that my friends were going to school and I wasn't going to school. And as I got older, that became more and more apparent, that while I would play with my brothers and my neighbors and my cousins after school, during the school day, I was home. And the Board of Education at that point sent a teacher to my house 1 day a week for an hour and another day for an hour and a half. So as I got older, it was becoming quite apparent that my parents' expectations for me and the system's expectations for me were quite different. And so I think it really gradually became more and more natural by following what my parents were doing to try to get me finally into school, although with segregated classes, and continue to push for my being able to go to high school. And I started going to elementary school when I was 9, but I was in segregated classes. And when I went to high school, I was the first student from my elementary school classes to go to high school. And so there were many quiet things that were happening, but I was very much observing and benefiting. And also at the same time, you know, feeling different. And I think that issue of feeling different, not equal, is something that many disabled people still face and struggle with that as we're getting older. And I think that was one of the important aspects and why Chris is suggesting you watch Crip Camp. I think it's a very important piece. This particular summer camp that was highlighted was in upstate New York. In the United States, there were many other camps similar to this, but what was unique about this particular camp was that there was a local organization with video cameras and asked, could we come in and teach the kids how to do videoing? And so that's where the footage came from. But as we were at camp and getting older, we really saw the value of being together, not in a forced segregation, but in an opportunity to be able to learn from each other and recognize that we had similar experiences of segregation and discrimination and people's limited view of what we could achieve, and that that wasn't the way we felt. And although we were teenagers at that point, we really were beginning to recognize that working together and creating aspirational goals, and then working at the local and national level and international level in the United States with other disabled people, getting laws and budgets and implementation and litigation and really becoming strong advocates was something that we believed would make a difference based on what we were seeing in the United States and other parts of the world regarding discrimination. So in the United States, the civil rights movement, the fight against apartheid in South Africa, and many other issues were allowing us to see that coming together, expressing concern and speaking out against discrimination, and then also becoming involved in resolving problems, learning the systems, was very helpful. And I think that's today what we continue to see is this momentum of disabled people around the world and family members recognizing that much of this has to be led by us. But it's critically important that, and I think many of you understand this, or you likely wouldn't be listening, you have a very important role to play, both in the quality of services that you provide, the messages that are being given to parents, young children and adults and other professionals, that disability is a normal part of life. We may do things differently, but at the end of the day, we should all aspire to be able to be respected people in our communities.
Beyza, hearing that from Turkey and Ankara, how does that resonate with you? Judy, you told us, yeah, basically how things have moved along over the years, but there still remain, things still remain to do. What's your perspective on that, Beyza?
I really think, even from my experience in Turkey, in 30 years, actually, there have been some changes, obviously, and things are not the same as they were in the past for Turkey, even for Turkey. But I really think that what is happening in the US or other more developed countries, actually, things are better there, and we have many ways to go and to reach, actually, because we couldn't really reach where we should really be right now, I really think. But things are moving in a good direction, because I can say for Turkey, actually, we have many good disabled rights activists in Turkey right now, and especially the younger generation, including mine. Actually, if I count myself as young, I can say we are in a good position, because I really believe that we have a strong understanding, and I really think that many of us are actually using their experience, their childhood experiences in their activism as well, in order to protect the rights of children with disabilities. And for example, there are many organizations who work for the right to education, and I really think that it is one of the things that could develop more as compared to other rights that children has in Turkey, actually, because actually it's the most basic one when we think about a child, and this is the first step toward inclusion, actually, and without that right, actually, then we also see that, actually, because when we look at the employment rate, etc., or the rates of students with disabilities in higher education is much lower than non-disabled people, and this is because many disabled children cannot get proper education. But I can also say that there is more actions to inclusion as well. This is one of them, actually, and I can also say that although there are many problems in the right to access to rehabilitation or health services for disabled children is still problematic, and I don't think these problems, I mean these rights, I mean the issues around these rights are very complete in any countries, but I really see these problems a lot when I'm more familiar with my own country, and that's why I'm always mentioning them. But I can say that these are the ones we work on most. But I really think that we should be working more on several other rights, such as the rights to live independently. And I'm not saying that in the sense that, I mean, it's not something like we should make all children with disabilities self-sufficient. It's not like that, actually. But I'm thinking about their right to have the same amount of control and choice over their lives with their peers without disabilities, actually. And I really think that they cannot really decide for themselves, because when families in Turkey have a disabled child, either from the birth or an acquired disability, families are usually very alone, and they are usually very, I mean, anxious, worried, and frightened by their experiences, and that's why they always try to seek for medical help usually, and they just don't really realize that their children is a child, actually, and they should have some other choices. For example, I mean, they are always forced to get some treatment, and sometimes their other needs, such as playing with their friends, or I don't know, socializing, going to cinema, like these, they are always in a second position, and they don't get to decide for themselves, actually, whether how they want to spend their time. Instead, they are always encouraged to do more physiotherapy, more special education, etc. And this is sometimes a big problem for their emotional and social development as well. And that's why I really think that these are very important points, because I mean those children have the right to decide for themselves as well. I hope you can hear me right now.
Yeah, we can. You can go ahead. We can hear you.
So I think
good to hear you. I think she froze. Yeah. Judy, would you like to react to that? I mean, that's an interesting point she was making, and I think there is a move within our, I'd say, professional circles to really move towards objectives which are set by, well, children, their families, and maybe move away from that model where basically therapies are imposed. And of course, we do realize it does take up a big amount of time throughout a childhood. What would you say about that? About children self-determining, and has that moved ahead? Do you think we're listening to them more than we did before?
I think that there are more parents that are demanding to be heard, and subsequently people are listening more. And I'm sure there are people already who are in these professions because they want to be collaborating, and therefore they're listening in order to be able to do a better job. I think when we look at the therapies, making them such that children can also be getting them in normal settings, so it facilitates their ability to actually really implement what they're getting and not having it be so abstract. And as one who, as I've said, is older, I think there's really a need to, as Beyza was saying, make sure the therapies are being given for a reason, and that the reason is understood certainly by the families, and kids, because they're kids, may or may not want to be engaged in this. And I think that's really where you need to be working effectively between those providing the support services and the family. But I also want to say that I really appreciate that both of us on this panel have disabilities and are professionals in our field, and that I see that as a very important issue, that there need to be more disabled individuals with visible and invisible disabilities who are willing to speak about their disabilities while they're doing whatever their respective jobs are. Because again, the lack of role models, I think, really is a negative impact. And so being able to have disabled individuals who are academics, who are professionals in fields, in whatever they may be, really serves a very important purpose. And ultimately, one of the things that people are able to do is really look at the communities that you work in, and what are the policies at the universities? Are disabled people being welcomed in if they meet the qualifications for the jobs? And do people recognize that bringing disabled people into these careers is ultimately beneficial for the professions overall? I think those are very important issues. And I think by having both of us on the panel gives a good example of the fact that, yes, there are people out there who can be more engaged and who are quite powerful in the messages that can be given.
Absolutely. And yet, again, I think, I think this is very meaningful that we're actually closing this whole meeting with you, and because you do have powerful voices, and I think that they do have to, I mean, we definitely do have to hear and listen to them. One of the first
powerful voices and knowledgeable.
And knowledgeable voices, absolutely.
Both knowledgeable as, you know, beneficiaries of, and also as contributors.
We had a day around partnership, and yeah, I think definitely this is something that we have to continue moving towards. One of the things, a citation, I think it was Denise that said it in the movie, saying that laws are only the tip of the iceberg, but a big part of it is about attitudes. How have you seen attitudes change over the last years?
So I love Denise dearly, and attitude is the word I don't like to use. I think action is really the more appropriate word. And are people's actions changing? I think they are slowly. I also feel that they're influenced by what's actually being taught in the classroom. So we really need to be looking at whether people moving forward in these various professional careers, what are they learning about disability history, which is one of the reasons why Crip Camp and other films and books are so very important. Really listening to the voices of people that are impacted by the work that you will be doing, the quality of the work, and as Beyza has been saying, the relevance of the work in helping one advance.
Beyza, would you like to kick in on
I
that?
I also agree that the education of all children from the very beginning actually is very important to change those attitudes. And I really think that in Turkey, I can say there are many people. And I also think that with that role model, I mean, with the emergence of role models actually in the field, and also the education of other children and young people in terms of those rights and those attitudes is very got very easy with the social media, I can say. I also think it's a very strong tool to use, and because you can reach so many people at once, and what, for example, Judith does in her Instagram account is really important, I guess, because she can reach to too many people in one post, and I really think that these kinds of things, and there are many other disabled how can I say, Instagrammers or YouTubers that I've been following, and I mean, internationally from all over the world, and I really think that the work they are doing is very important in order to change those attitudes as well. And I can also say that things are changing slowly, but I feel, I mean, I have the feeling that it's got faster at I don't know, last 10 years or something, I can say, or 5 years or something, and I can see that it will be even faster with the use of those social media accounts and platforms, I can say.
I also think we need to be, depending on the country that we're living in. I mean, COVID actually has very much shown the fragility of all systems around the world when it comes to disabled individuals in the United States and in countries around the world. The largest percentage of people dying from COVID are those individuals who have disabilities. Even getting the vaccination has been difficult, for people who have disabilities to get it. And so those are things I think we have to be concerned about, plus the increasing numbers of disabled people from war and from famine, etc. And so I think while in some of the countries we're definitely seeing progress, I also think we really need to be looking at countries that are more impoverished, the dislocation of families, what's going on in refugee camps or what's not going on in refugee camps for families and disabled individuals. I think that's an issue that we all need to be, focusing on, that many of our governments are giving development aid. And one of the issues is whether or not they are prioritizing, for example, education of disabled children when they're looking at education for children. And I think too frequently that's not happening. And part of that issue, I think, is the need to be integrating disability, as I said earlier, into professional training, so that people who are going to be teachers are getting at least some very basic education on how to work with children who have disabilities. And for children like Beyza and myself, we didn't need different academic training, right? Teachers could teach us. We may have needed accommodations, but we certainly didn't need modifications to how the instruction was happening. Now, clearly, there are many other students who do need teachers who ideally have some more degree of training, as an example. But those are things that I think can continue to move forward if we're singularly focused on issues like education for all as a right.
A call for action. Thanks a lot. I'm sorry to say that we've already spent half an hour together. It's felt like 5 minutes, and I could have gone on all evening. Judy, Beyza, I really want to thank you. Deep felt thanks. It's been an honor, a pleasure to have both of you in this conversation. I'm sure our people who are listening in also got the most of it. And really, I mean, those are strong messages from knowledgeable and powerful women. And it was a pleasure to have you with me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Chris. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.